the newest issue of Financial IQ with Dr. Chi,
First of all, I think this is a really interesting issue.
health savings accounts,
Saving for retirement is not only about saving for your 401k.
and being healthy in retirement.
Even though you probably won't have a huge medical bill today, it may happen in the future.
All this and more on today's episode of The Wave Strength.
Welcome to the Wave Strength. Innovative solutions for a secure retirement. Presented by Pacific Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wave Strength podcast series. I'm your host, Jim Breen, head of marketing with Pacific Life's institutional business team. With us today in the studio is Dr. Chi Sun, the financial economist for our institutional business team. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio to talk about your newest newsletter, which we'll get into in a moment. But Dr. Chi, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's so great to be back here with Jim to talk about this new Financial IQ article.
Absolutely. And in fact, we were together with Chris McGlynn about 2 weeks ago in New York, receiving recognition and awards for your recent Decoding Retirement white paper and the campaign that accompanied that white paper. Kudos to you, Chi, and all the great work. And you did a great job on stage representing Pacific Life with Chris, receiving those awards. So for those who want to learn more about it, go ahead and Google the words Decoding Retirement, and you can click the link to view that white paper and all the great information that is accompanying that campaign. So let's get to the topic at hand today, which is unpacking the newest version of the newsletter, Financial IQ with Dr. Chi. Now, the title of this issue is Hidden Hurdle to the Golden Age, a really clever title at that. And interesting enough, you really dive into some of these concerns that folks in retirement have as it pertains to wellness, to health, and how that connects to your financial well-being. Can you provide a quick overview, Dr. Chi, of this version of the newsletter?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think this is a really interesting issue. Personally, that's definitely something I always want to look into. So in this particular issue of the Financial IQ, we talk about how chronic disease, especially for multiple coexisting chronic conditions, going to impact retirement spending and out-of-pocket medical expenditures. So the first evidence I definitely want to bring, the audience attention is people may be, very familiar with the fact that the chronic disease is pretty prevalent in this country, maybe across the world. But one fact people often neglect is that having one chronic condition increase the risk of having more chronic conditions in the future. And those multiple chronic conditions actually increase the risk of medical expenditures significantly. So that's definitely the first piece of the evidence I want to present. In fact, I found out the statistic that for the U.S. population that older than age 65, 30% of them have more than 4 coexisting chronic conditions.
More than 4?
Yeah,
wow.
More than 4. So that is probably, the case our parents gonna face. Maybe they're already in their 60s, right? So that is actually a pretty harsh fact for this aging population. And this multiple coexisting chronic condition actually increase the chance of incurring out-of-pocket medical expenditures. Actually, we find out that when the people who have more than 4 chronic conditions actually has 50% higher probability to generate out-of-pocket medical expenditure. And just for the audience curiosity, when we study on medical expenditure data, normally you're going to see a lot of people have 0 out-of-pocket expenditure, which is, a good thing. But what we find is when people having more than 4 chronic conditions, that chance increased to 50%, which is, I would say for me, is a very impressive number.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
large number, 50%, especially at that stage in life,
Yeah.
right? And folks that maybe did not have the benefit of financial education or financial planning. When you get to that point in your life without the benefit of those resources as you were coming up maybe through your career,
Yeah.
to not have those and maybe to not be as prepared in general with your finances in retirement,
Yeah.
50%.
Yeah.
That number, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and also what I did with the data is I use a very rich data set over a decade to actually track how this out-of-pocket expenditure gonna impact the retirement spending. So we find out that for the healthy group, which I define in the article is like those people who never report any chronic conditions during the decade, consistently spend more than the unhealthy counterpart, which are the person report at least one chronic conditions. So you can see this impact is not like a one time, it lasts for a long term. And especially we found out that the spending patterns for the unhealthy group is relatively unelastic, which means they already kind of reached their bottom line. There's not enough room they can take back. But on the other hand, the healthy group, their spending patterns are relatively sticky with the economic environment, which means sometimes when we got really bad times like the Great Recession, people can choose to spend less. But for the unhealthy group, there's no basically. They don't have an option to do that. So this is something I think first is an interesting finding. Second, I think it's definitely raise our awareness that for the people with multiple chronic conditions, the spending power definitely reduced a lot.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, Dr. Chi. Yeah, that difference between that healthy and unhealthy choice in lifestyle, and some of those are, like you say, these diseases that folks just don't have any control over. But that correlation between health, fitness, and financial fitness is a strong one. So then, Chi, let's now talk a little bit about what individuals can do to prepare for the potential of increased medical expenses as they age.
That's a good question. I'm not a doctor of the doctor, but
not a medical doctor. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a medical doctor, but still,
you have the research though. Yeah.
Yeah. As the name indicated, it's a chronic disease, so it's not happen like tomorrow, which means you have a longer time to actually prevent more conditions develop in the future, right?
Yeah.
Definitely not a medical doctor, but I would definitely suggest, maintain the physical exercise, health diet. That's definitely one thing can prevent chronic disease develop into even more severe conditions. But secondly, in the financial perspective, I would say setting aside on money is definitely a smart choice. We already learned that a lot of employers currently offer the emergency saving program for their employees, and I think taking advantage of that is definitely something you can start when you are young, when your body is young, right, to prevent the potential medical expenditure in the future. And secondly, I think the health saving account is definitely something I would say becoming more and more popular recently.
Yeah, and you talked about emergency fund. It's funny how even the smallest amount in an emergency fund for anybody, but you mentioned young people in particular, it's a great way to train your brain to get used to that idea of be it delayed gratification because you are putting that money aside for that rainy day or that emergency situation, but also to program your mind as it pertains to further down the road in retirement, right? As you enter that workforce, getting familiar with putting money aside to save, to learn about how you can grow that money and be more prepared in retirement. And I think the studies do show that there is a correlation again between when you have that idea of financial health and wellness, it can transfer into your own personal health and wellness as well, and provide a connection there for both of those to be aligned and on track as best as possible. But you did mention health savings accounts, or HSAs. Let's talk a little bit about that particular vehicle and how that can help somebody in retirement.
Yeah, sure. So the HSA is definitely, I would say personally, as a certified financial advisor, I think that's a really good vehicle for saving for potential out-of-pocket medical savings. It's different from the FSA. HSA has, I would say, additional benefits to grow this savings in the future. And also, I think for HSA, sometimes the employer also will provide the matching to that as well. That's pretty common in the workforce place. But even with such a benefit, what I saw from the data is only 1/4 of the employee are using HSA
1/4.
when they are in the HSA eligible plan.
Wow.
So, and also, not too many people are taking advantage of the annual contribution limitation.
Yes.
They're not maintaining their account balance and let it grow in the future. So I think that's definitely, I would say, one part people are neglecting currently, and I think could be contribute greatly to secure their financial health during the retirement.
And a lot of that comes down to education, financial education, even basic financial education. And the earlier we can bring that level of understanding to that individual, the more comfortable they will be as they grow in their career, in their journey towards retirement. As opposed to waiting until you're 45, 55 to say, maybe I should look at these vehicles or these opportunities.
Yeah, I agree that I'm doing this education for all my friends. I'm checking with them. Are you in the high deductible health insurance plan? If so, are you using your HSA account? So I think that's definitely, I would say, one of the important purpose for doing this article, to bring people's attention that, saving for retirement is not only about saving for your 401k. The HSA is a great supplement for that retirement security, because I think I mentioned by the end of the article that having a HSA is associated with, more retirement security from a research study from the EBRI. So I think that's definitely something people often don't notice or put attention to. So I think for me, I definitely want the audience, whoever listened to this podcast today, to raise awareness that HSA is a great vehicle for secure retirement.
Now, what are some strategies for managing and preventing the impact, Chi, of chronic diseases on our financial security and retirement, in your opinion?
So I think it's definitely, once you have one chronic condition,
yes,
you should be aware that the chance or the risk you have multiple chronic conditions is significantly increased, which means even though you probably won't have a huge medical bill today, it may happen in the future. So go back to the previous one we already decided, stay alert, starting the emergency saving or rainy day saving earlier in your career or in your life, so that you won't say, oh, I'm already in my 60s, I have nothing left for this potential medical bills in the future. What should I do? We don't want that happen, right? So that is definitely one thing. And secondly, I would say a lot of people have some misperceptions regarding Medicaid and Medicare.
Yes.
I'm not expert in that area as well, but I do know there's a donut hole. Like, for certain prescription medications, the Medicare and the Medicare won't cover that part. So that is also something people should be aware of and get ready for that. So I would say education is a key thing, as long as you are aware of all those potential risks, that you got more motivation to get ready for that.
Yeah, education, so important, and it ties us back to the reason why we're sitting here in the studio today for this podcast. Hidden Hurdle to the Golden Age, the new title of the newest issue of Financial IQ with Dr. Chi, and I encourage all of our listeners to head over to LinkedIn and search for our institutional showcase page, where you can find that newsletter, subscribe to it, and be the first to see the content as it becomes live. Dr. Chi, I want to thank you again for sitting down with us today in the studio on the Wave Strength and discussing this newest issue.
Thank you, Jim. It's great to be back here.
Fantastic. And to our audience, I want to thank you for joining us on another episode of the Wave Strength presented by Pacific Life. If you want to stay current to all of our episodes, head over to YouTube. Hit like and subscribe so that you can be the first to see the content as it becomes available. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
This has been another episode of The Wave Strength, presented by Pacific Life. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Although this podcast is presented by Pacific Life, the opinions and views expressed are those of the hosts and participants and do not necessarily reflect Pacific Life's views on any of the topics discussed. Unless otherwise noted, Pacific Life is unaffiliated with any other individual or company mentioned. Pacific Life is a product provider. It is not a fiduciary and therefore does not give advice or make recommendations regarding insurance or investment products. Pacific Life, its affiliates, its distributors, and respective representatives do not provide any employer-sponsored qualified plan administrative services or impartial advice about investments and do not act in a fiduciary capacity for any plan. Pacific Life refers to Pacific Life Insurance Company and its subsidiary, Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Insurance products can be issued in all states except New York by Pacific Life Insurance Company and in all states by Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Product availability and features may vary by state. Each insurance company is solely responsible for the financial obligations accruing under the products it issues. This podcast was recorded on June 27th, 2024.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation below and leave a comment on your thoughts on what the industry can do better for participants as it pertains to lifetime income solutions. And if you'd like more interesting content, click one of these links over here.